right. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, well, it's basically part of a bigger series. What I want to talk about is human behavior and the reason why we organize ourselves into societies. Now, one of the things, just as a sample topic, I want to talk about adulthood and why there's a difference between societies where it's government focus and societies where there is a lot less focus on who's in charge and a lot more autonomy among the people rather than centralization of thought and behavior. One of the things we see in societies where there is more focus on government. And in fact, before we talk about more the government focused society, let's talk about the societies where there's less focus on government. And you find that more in what we would call primitive or ancient societies. So we might talk about the pre-colonized African tribal systems, or even the North American and even South American tribal systems, where you had smaller tribal factions and peoples. They would have groups, and they may have covered large territories, but they didn't have a system of a social system with a government head at the top of it. Even though they would have been unified as a tribe, that doesn't mean that they had, and even though they would have chiefs from time to time, but there was a lot less focus on government and government instruction on the people and a lot more focus on individual autonomy. Part of what makes government successful is the ability to convince people that they need somebody to do their thinking for them. Basically, if is a popular argument that if people were left alone without a government, they would break out into chaos because apparently nobody can think for themselves what to do without somebody actually telling them what to do and what to not do. And the person who is telling them also has the violent capacity to enforce punishment or rewards for doing what you're supposed to do or not doing what you're not supposed to do. Now, what we have in societies that where less government seemingly was required. Now, yes, there was a simpler social system than what we have now. And the move towards complicating the social system is something I will address also, but that's going to be a different discussion. Basically, we have a feature in societies that were less government focused. One of the important features was a rite of passage into adulthood. In every society where we don't see a strong focus on government, it so happens that we also see a strong focus on individual movement from childhood to adulthood. This would entail a lengthy ritual. It would have been a social recognition by all involved that this individual is no longer a child and is now a man. No, you didn't just get into adulthood by becoming a certain age or by reaching a certain height or any physical features like that. You actually had to pass prescribed tests. There would be some sort of endurance, some sort of skill-based test, some sort of physical abilities or ability to build craft, or even there would have been a lot of different varieties from culture to culture. But and one of the most popular ways of proving as a young child that you have earned the right to be called a man was your ability to bear pain. Now, not all of them were that like that, but this is a popular type of ritual where You would put the person through some sort of enduring pain, whether it's there was a number of creative ways these tribes would come up with ways of inflicting some kind of bearable. It would be excruciating, but not injurious to the young person. But having done that, that would be the point where they could now say, I am an adult. Now, the reason why it's important to have a defining point where someone can say, I am an adult, is because being an adult, the distinction between being an adult and being a child is the ability to make your own decisions. Once you're an adult, you become independent, more or less. Not necessarily completely independent, but you would have the capacity to fend for yourself. That's what being an adult meant. It also meant you had the capacity to have a wife, to have a child, to have kids, run your own home, and feed yourself, and these kinds of things. So becoming an adult, and we see this interestingly enough in the animal kingdom, where even among solitary predators, say leopards, there's a point where the cubs become skilled enough, not just old enough, not just strong enough. They become skilled enough to hunt for themselves. And that's the point where the mother no longer needs to raise them. They've been successfully raised. In cultures where we have a more of a government focus, there's no defining and delimiting point where somebody can say, I have been completely unsuccessfully raised and I can now become independent. Because there is still this overbearing social pressure that you may have become the independent of your parents, and it's not a ritual of honor. It's usually get out of my house, you're grown enough, you have your own job, or mom, dad, I'm out of here. There is no ceremonious transition. So it's not even to say there's a specific point in time that is uniform and universal. And that is part of why we have a lot of, well, we do, now, I believe that this is built into the system in terms of we do not really want a lot of independent people in a society where we want them to be dependent on the government. So that is yet another issue that we're going to talk about. But the point I'm making here is that in societies where we don't have rituals that inform us that a person is now officially an adult in society, we are the same societies where we have a lot of government dependence, where people are told, if we had no government, nobody would know what to do and chaos would ensue. It's not that this is the state of humans, that once there's nobody telling you what to do, nobody knows what to do. But rather, we have created a state where we discourage independence on the individual level because we don't want a society that becomes independent of government. Now, this is part of a bigger series, I would say, that we want to talk about. Why is it that the system is the way it is? So this is just a little bit of scratching the surface of where we at and what are the things that we need to rethink in order to fix the system. So I'll leave you with that for now.